Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to our podcast, Filled with Confidence. My name is Obanchano, and I'm here with
Kim Cobbler
Kim,
again.
Kim and Umi. And again, I hope you guys are enjoying some of the episodes that we have been posted. You find us on Facebook
Yep.
under Filled with Confidence and also on YouTube. That's
Yep.
all we got right now.
Yeah.
And Instagram a little bit, but we're working on it. And now we're trying to build our YouTube audience mostly so. So if you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. And then, yeah.
And give us comments. So there's a
Yeah.
place to comment. We want to hear from you. So.
Yeah, we've seen a few comments.
Yeah.
We got back and responded. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
We
keep
like
coming.
hearing from you.
Yeah. Excited. So anyways, you just
Yeah.
got back from St. George.
I did.
You,
I'm always on the road.
A marathon. Well, your kids
Yeah.
did a marathon, but you also did a marathon because you had to drive all the way.
Yeah. I did a
Yeah.
driving marathon.
You had a busy day.
Just to get a few hours of hugs and kisses from grandkids
Yeah.
and children.
Because you drove back the same day, huh?
Yeah. I went late Friday night and came back Saturday. So
Yeah.
it was
That's
a
a
quick trip.
marathon.
Few
Yeah.
hours of sleep.
That's cool. And everything went well. Like
Yeah,
your
yeah,
kids
they
won.
all
They beat
they all
everybody.
finished, and they set high goals for themselves. So I think some of them met their goals and some of them didn't, but they all did well.
It's a 6K consider a marathon? No.
26
It's
miles.
26 miles is a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because, yeah, I remember in Thanksgiving a few years ago, a friend of mine called me up the same day. They were doing the turkey trot.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey,
It's
you want to
usually
run
a
it with me?
5K or a
Yeah,
10K.
it was a 6K.
Yeah, probably a 10K, 6 miles. You think?
Oh, yeah, 6 miles.
Yeah.
Was it 6 miles?
I don't know. They
Yeah.
usually do 5K or 10K.
Okay, maybe a 5. And anyways, but that's not a marathon.
No, it's
Okay.
a lot less.
Okay. Anyway, so he calls me up the same morning and he's like, hey, you want to run with me? And I'm like, sure. I didn't know what I was expected. And I didn't, practice anything. And I ran it, but I almost died.
That's like my
It took me an
son.
hour to do that.
It did?
Yeah. Well, 58 minutes
Yeah.
exact. I don't know if that's as good, but I was there by the end. Right?
Yeah. It took, Dakota didn't train at all, my son, and he ran them 26 miles in under 4 hours.
Wow. Yeah, I will die if I do that at this point. Yeah, no way.
When I used to run marathons, and I think my slowest was like over 6 hours. And
Yeah.
I used to always tell him, "You guys don't even talk to me about how hard that was, because I ran 3 times as long as you."
But again, we are all in a marathon. Life is
It's
a
true.
marathon. Is it? Yeah, we can think. Yeah, because
Well,
it's not
yeah,
about.
we're
It's not.
in it for the long haul.
Yeah, it's not
So
about
quick
winning.
fixes,
It's not about winning.
and it's not about quick
I mean,
fixes.
competing about other people. Or is it marathons? Do you compete?
Not,
No, right?
well, it depends on who you are. I
Oh,
compete
yeah,
against
yeah.
myself,
Well,
but
yeah. And that's kind of what it is.
yeah,
In
you're always
life,
looking for your next best time, or to
Yeah.
improve somehow
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
But there are those who are super competitive that are just
Yeah.
trying to get it,
Yeah.
who are trying to place, get a
Yeah,
place.
but life. I mean, and even in life, some people
Mhm.
compete while other people
Yeah.
compare themselves to other people.
Yeah.
And that's their motivation, I guess. I don't know.
I think there are those. I don't have a competitive bone in my body,
Me
but
neither.
some
People
people
wanna
really
win.
thrive on that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, they're the ones at the front of the pack.
Yeah, with me, it's like if you want to win, you can win. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Anyways.
enjoy the run.
Yeah, exactly. Or enjoy or not enjoy. I don't enjoy it.
Just grit your teeth and finish.
Yeah. Whatever. But in life, you're supposed to, hopefully we're getting better and enjoying it.
Along the way. Yeah.
I think that's probably
That's
the
what I
case in
do.
running.
I like watching the people and
Yeah.
checking out the scenery. And yeah, that's not the way people run marathons if they're competitive.
Yeah, no, it's all about getting ahead and stuff. Anyways, So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I want to hear more about you. I want to give me a little bit of your background, like kind of what life was like when you were growing up, and then how I want to hear about more about not necessarily your conversion, but kind of how you got introduced to God. But tell me more
So
about
my
just your
conversion.
background. Yeah, yeah,
What led me to my conversion and then what
yeah,
happened?
yeah.
Okay. Well, I grew up so I'm originally from Colombia, and I grew up in a very interesting, um, what would I say, very interesting setting,
Yeah.
I was basically raised by my grandmother. My mom left when I was 5, but I
Mm.
remember, at that time, I remember how close I was to my mother.
She left Colombia
Yeah,
and you stayed
yeah.
there.
I stayed there under my grandmother's care.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember very vividly,
Mm-hmm.
even though at age 5, because she was my favorite person. She was my friend. My
Mm-hmm.
dad was never around.
So you didn't know your dad at
No,
all?
I got the first time I remember seeing my dad was when I was 10,
Mm.
you know,
Interesting.
and then I saw him again when I was 24, and then just maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago,
Mm.
a few months before he
Wow.
passed away. Uh, but yeah,
Mm.
just those 3 times that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, by my mother, she was, my favorite person. I mean, she took care of me. I remember, she would read me stories and she was always there. I remember her defending me, like she was very involved and very engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she loved me, like I remember, I really remember. And so when she decides to leave,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't leave because
Yeah, what was the reason she
she
left?
wasn't abandoning me. She just wanted a better life. And so she thought that leaving me would be easier than trying to figure things out with me.
Right.
And that's what her sisters told her and friends. And so she was influenced by that.
She
And she,
thought you would be better off staying in a stable
yeah,
place
yeah,
while she tried to get a better life or
yeah,
establish herself.
right. But as a 5-year old, you don't see
Mm-mm.
it that way. You
Mm-mm.
you see abandonment. You see, or you feel,
Yeah, definitely causes
yeah,
a wound
you
to
know,
be disconnected
yeah.
from your
My
parents.
best friend left me. My best
Yeah,
friend doesn't love me. My best friend hates me, or I'm a
yeah,
bad boy, or whatever. It's
yeah.
very negative. And I remember waking up the night that she was leaving,
Mm.
because I think she left like around midnight. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I would hear people crying.
Hmm.
Like it was pretty loud. And I woke up and I walked into the living room
Mm-hmm.
and I see everybody crying. And I remember my grandmother, I think, she said, she said to somebody, grab him and take him back into the room.
Mm.
And then I see my mom crying. And anyways, my mom is like, oh no, it's fine, it's fine. And she grabs me, she hugs me,
Mm-hmm.
and she begins to try to explain to me that she was leaving. I
Mm.
didn't understand,
Mm-mm.
you know? But I remember at one point she said, okay, I need to go. And she puts me down and people were holding me and she was walking out the door. And
Mm.
I got loose and I went after her and she got into a Jeep, I think, and took off.
Mm.
And I remember running after her,
Mm.
and that was the beginning of a very hard impact in my heart,
Yeah.
and in my head, and
Mm-hmm.
and she was gone for 7 years. So
Yeah.
from when I was 5
When
till
you're
12.
when you're that young, we don't have emotional maturity. Like
Yeah,
our brains aren't developed enough, so we do think everything is about us. So
yeah,
it's just natural to assume that you did something wrong or that
yeah,
there's something wrong with you, and that's why she left because we don't have the means to process it any other way. So that's why those
yeah.
things are so traumatic to us.
And I think those years, when she was gone from 5 to 12 are vital years
Oh yeah,
for a child's development
for sure.
and and in building
Mm-hmm.
relationship building with
Mm-hmm.
with parents and so
Yeah,
on.
creating a secure
Yeah,
attachment, we call it.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know what I mean. And so I didn't have that. And
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother, she did the best she could, but she wasn't my mother.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my grandmother said, "Oh, I'm your dad, and I'm your mom."
Mm-hmm.
As I got older, I'm like, nobody can take the place of a mother and a father. Even if you're a single dad or a single mom, you're not going to take the place of the other parent.
No, you
There's a
try,
reason.
but it's,
Yeah, you
yeah.
can. It's just not
Mm-mm.
your role. You're either a mother or a father.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a father around, then you're just a mother. And yeah, you do the best you can, but
Right.
the absence of a father or the absence of the mother, if in case
Mm-hmm.
a single dad, it will cause huge issues in the life of a child.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what happened. And then when I'm 12, she comes back and
Mm-hmm.
she brings me to the States. But she had another family. She was married and had
Mm.
a and had two other kids.
Oh, wow. So you
Yeah,
had half brother and half
just
sister.
one half sister,
Oh,
and then the brother.
was a step to her.
Yes. Well, no, the girl was a stepdaughter, and then my brother, who was my mom's and her
Oh.
new husband, and this girl, the daughter, my mom's husband's daughter. My mom raised her since she was like 5.
Mm.
So she had a bond.
Mm-hmm.
She was there
Mm-hmm.
for her. Anyways, and so when I come here, I was still in a strange place. Not only
Mm-hmm.
I came to a new country, with a different language,
Mm.
but I came to a strange
Did you know
house.
English?
No, not at all.
Mm.
And I came to a strange, home. I couldn't connect. I didn't know my mother.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know my husband. I didn't know anybody really. And so
Yeah.
it was horrible.
Did you feel like an intruder or
Oh
like,
yeah, I
yeah?
felt so bad. Yeah, like and I remember the next day, like they sent me to school and so on.
Mm.
But anyways, that's how kind of I grew up. And then at one point, my mom's husband convinced my mom to give me away in adoption, like
Mm.
to turn me into the state because I was reacting.
Mm-hmm.
I was
You were,
rebellious.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
You were struggling.
Struggling. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. And that's what rebellion is. What we call rebellion is really someone trying to express something that
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand or know how
Yeah.
to
They just act out, trying
exactly,
to either get attention or
exactly.
fit in
That's all it
or
is.
struggle or.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, he convinced my mother, you know, to give
And
me
you were
a.
12 at this time.
Well, no, I was a little bit older. I think I
Oh,
was 14 at this
by then.
point.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, and I don't
That's
blame my
a
mother just because.
that's a time frame where lots of kids act out whether they've been in a stable environment or not. Like you're
Yeah.
just changing a lot, so you feel
Yeah,
confused and
yeah, no, and
conflicted.
I've been acting out since the moment that I got here.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's kind of what happened, and so they take me to this place, and I went through, I think, like 3 different doctors or psychologists or therapists, whatever those people were. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember the first two telling me, and so their foundation to turn me in, my mom and her husband, was that I was insane,
Mm-hmm.
that I was crazy. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's what
There
because
was something mentally wrong with
yeah,
you.
and they would tell me that.
Mm.
And so whenever the doctors will come and ask me, the first two doctors, they came and asked me, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Because they think I'm crazy."
Mm.
And they would just write on their thing. And then the second one did the same thing. And then the third person that came, she spoke Spanish.
Oh.
I think she
Mm-hmm.
was either Cuban or Puerto Rican,
Mm-hmm.
and she spoke Spanish, and so immediately she, got my
You're able
attention,
to connect
and I
better.
was able to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
But I said the same thing. I said they think I'm crazy, and then she looked at me and she grabbed my hand and she looked straight into my eyes
Mm-hmm.
and she said, "You're not crazy."
Mm-hmm.
She said, you need love, and you have a family, and you don't belong here. They need to learn to love you. And she said to me, "You are not the problem. They are
Mm-hmm.
the problem. And it's because they don't know how to deal with this situation.
Mm-hmm.
They think this is the best way out, and it is not. You don't belong here. You
Mm-hmm.
have a home, you have a family, and they need to learn to love you." Anyway, so yeah, they had to come back, and it was like 2 hours away or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they came back and they wrote me back. But still, my mom's husband didn't want me there,
Mm-hmm.
and I started staying like at friends' houses, and here and there. There were nights that I didn't sleep. I was out on the street, as a 15-year old kid, just roaming the streets
Mm.
until
And you're in New Jersey,
in
right?
New Jersey. And I remember there were winter times, it was really cold, and just on the streets, you know. And I remember there was this one kid who saw my situation and he invited me. He said, "Why don't you just come and stay at my house?" And so I followed him and we walked miles. And I remember getting to his house, what I thought was his house, and then it was gated. He had fences around the house.
Mm.
And I see him start climbing over the fence.
Mm.
And I'm like, "What is this? Why are you climbing over the fence if this is your house?" Anyway, so I followed him,
Mm-hmm.
and he had been living there
Mm.
for a long time. And
So he was like a homeless.
yeah, it was a empty house, abandoned house, all boarded up. And he
Mm.
had this little corner where he had a box and a few blankets.
Mm.
And I stayed there,
Mm.
like a couple nights with him. And it just didn't feel right. And so then I started to go back home to my mom at 5 in the morning every day, soon after her husband would go to work,
Mm.
so I can eat and go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it was insane. And I don't blame
Yeah.
my mom, but this is what happened because her perspective of me had been lost because of
Right.
she leaving me those years.
Mm-hmm.
There was no connection between it, and that's why for her it was easy to, or it wasn't hard to really say to her husband, like, it was easy for her to say to her husband, "Hey, my
Well,
kid, that's not going on the street, or I'm not turning my kid in," or something like that.
right. There's lots of situations though where if a person, and I likening this a little bit to my situation, if you're not emotionally equipped to
Hmm.
stand, you don't have the confidence or the self-esteem to stand up for something, even though you want to.
Yeah,
Like she may have really knew that she needed to make a change or do something, but she wasn't emotionally equipped to stand up against
yeah,
her
yeah,
husband, or that, then it didn't have anything to do with how much she loved or cared about you. It just had to do with her not being emotionally equipped to say no or stand up against her
yeah,
husband.
yeah. I mean, she had her own issues
Right,
to deal
right.
with, I'm sure, and he did too.
Mhm.
But and that's what happened. So
Mhm.
I ended up just growing up like that, and the
It's
insecurity, the
hard.
brokenness just keeps getting stronger and stronger. And then finally, I got to a point that I didn't want to live anymore. I actually started drinking early too, like around 14. And so, like, I became an alcoholic at a very early age. And, I kept growing like that. There were times where I wouldn't even remember where I was the day before. Like, seriously, it
Mm.
was really bad. That's just the way that
It's
I was
scary.
coping with things.
Mhm.
And then finally, I came to a point where I just wanted to take my life. I didn't want to live anymore. And I started contemplating, how I was going to do that.
Mm.
But, and there's a process, when someone contemplates suicide, because you be, there's a fear there, But
Because
when
you didn't know, you didn't really get raised in a family that believed in God or an afterlife or any of those things. So that
no,
wasn't the fear.
no, it was just a fear of pain, or
Oh, gotcha.
something
Or
like that. The
not
physical, I
knowing
think,
what happens
yeah,
when you die.
maybe, but I think it was mostly just afraid of hurting physically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because as I kept moving forward through the years,
Mm-hmm.
I started feeling a relief because the pain inside me was becoming a lot stronger to the degree that hurting myself physically wasn't as painful and it wasn't a worry anymore,
Mm-hmm.
so it was just going to be a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember starting to feel a relief
Hmm.
because I was convinced that I wasn't going to be here very much longer,
Mm. That
you
you were
know?
going to be able to escape the pain you were
Yeah.
feeling.
So I started contemplating different
Hmm.
ways, but I remember the very day when I attempted a suicide. And it just happened very randomly, like it wasn't planned.
Yeah, I was
And
going
I,
to say what triggered you or what
yeah,
prompted it.
and I think that's what happens with everybody that attempts suicide. It's not planned. It just comes to a moment where the situation is given and you just take it.
Because
Like,
you've been pondering it or
yeah,
contemplating
yeah,
it for a long time.
yeah. And I think the decision comes at that very moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody walking in front of a train or someone hanging themselves or shooting themselves. You don't know that's how you're going to take your life until that very moment,
Right.
you see? And so that's how it happened to me. I was with my friends. We were up on a story. We were like 40 feet up on an abandoned building, you know? Um, and that was it. I remember stood on the edge of the building, you know, backwards.
Mm.
And my friend, I remember he's like, hey, be careful. And I just jumped,
Mm.
just jumped.
Mm.
And, I hit the ground. Well, I remember, you know,
Do you remember falling?
yeah, I remember falling, but
Oh.
I remember up until I slammed my head on the ground like really hard.
Mm.
I mean, obviously,
Was it sidewalk down below? I mean,
yeah, it
street
was a
down below?
sidewalk and there was
Mm-hmm.
a tree, so my arm landed on a log,
Mm.
and that's what snapped my arm. But I hurt my back really bad. But anyways, I passed out right away. Like if I had died, it would have been fine
Mm.
because just the impact, I was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened, and so
Wow.
obviously I didn't die. So when I come back to,
Mm-hmm.
I was in excruciating pain. Not only,
Where were you? Were you in a hospital? Were you where?
no, I was in a bedroom. A friend of mine took me to somebody's
Oh,
bedroom.
wow.
Yeah, because they didn't know my mom. They didn't know anybody. They didn't know how to get a hold of anybody.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't until 2 weeks that my mom found out about it. You know,
Wow.
and she asked her husband if she could bring me to the house so she can take care of me. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. But as soon as he's well, he needs to leave,
Hmm.
you know?
Wow. And how old were you?
I was 18 when I did that.
Wow.
But anyways, so, um,
You woke up in this
yeah,
place.
yeah. So I came back to it and I remember I went to move and my arm was broken, and stuff. And
Mm.
anyways, that happened. And, you know, they wanted to do surgery, but I said no, like I didn't want to. And I just wrapped my arm, and I just
Did your mom take you to
cured
the
it.
doctor? Is that how you got to the doctor? Or do
She
you
tried, but I
remember?
said no. I said
Mm.
no.
Mm.
I don't remember all the details really about that, but I remember being in a lot of pain
Mm-hmm.
physically. But the worst pain was inside because I wasn't successful in my attempt and I was
Now
hurting.
you're even worse off
Yeah.
in your mind.
And oh man, I started hearing those voices again,
Mm.
like take your life, like you are not worth anything, those demons, those
Mm.
those very loud voices. And at this time, I was already at my mom's place. And then that's kind of where everything started because I realized how broken I was, you know, and how, like, it was a dead end for me. Like, I just didn't know what else to do, just
Mm.
on my bed, just suffering. But it was during that time where I heard another voice, and that voice said to me, "Come unto me." It was as clear as it could be
Mm.
in the midst of all these other voices that were telling me I was no good,
Mm.
that, I wasn't worth anything. And I probably contemplated the voice for maybe like 2 weeks. And
Mm.
finally, because I had no concept of God or nothing,
Right.
but finally, like somehow I recognized that voice being inviting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, as best as I could, I got on my knees naturally. I
Mm.
mean, I never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
But I got on my knees in my bedroom just by myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked up to the ceiling. I said, "Is this God?
Mm.
Are you there? Like, do you exist? Are you that being people say it's
Is that
out
what I'm
there in
hearing?
space?" But I'm crying.
Mm.
I'm broken. I'm
Yeah.
I'm miserable. I'm pleading. And I said, "If this is God, please manifest yourself because
Mm.
I have nowhere else to go. There is nothing or anybody I can trust. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
broken
Mm.
person. So if you are God and if you exist and if you are full of love, as I hear you are, please manifest yourself."
Mm.
And immediately at that very moment, my bedroom started lighting up.
Mm.
But before I even notice anything else, there's this force that just comes through my body and it knocks me out. And I was gone. I was gone probably for hours because this happened at night.
Mm.
And when I came back, it was daytime. So when I come back from that, there was a mirror in my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the mirror and I'm crying.
Mm.
But the cool thing about this now is that it wasn't about pain anymore. I was crying of a fullness of joy.
Mm.
You know, like I didn't know at that time what it was, but I know now that it was the Spirit of God that descended upon me and He cured me. He healed me from all of those wounds, all those that turmoil that I had been experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I was born again. And from that experience, I learned very intimate things. I heard the voice of the Lord telling me, "You have been born of me,
Mm.
and now I will lead you to grow up in me."
Mm.
And from that experience alone, I learned like six things. Number one, I learned from my personal experience, independent of anybody,
Mm-hmm.
that there is a God.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an energy. It's not, you know
It's
what
a
I mean?
person,
It's a
a
being.
being.
It's a being with a figure.
Mm-hmm.
There is a God. I learned, wow, that went quick.
Yeah. You
What's
better
your,
name your six things.
the other one is that He's very aware of us,
Mm-hmm.
that He loves me. He's very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that He was my Father. And after that, I learned that I didn't want to live without His influence in my life. And then I guess we'll continue.